Beautiful. Back to it. Got my coffee.
Would be cool if it ever did. But like in that, like I.
And yeah, I'm gonna get it to the Trump speech from last night because I saw a few clips and it looked interesting. Interesting to say the least.
Would refer to him as Mr. President. I would never sit there and say, Donald, the thing is, you know what I mean? Like, that just seems crazy to me.
That could have been a translation mistake type of a thing, too.
Possible.
But, yeah, so don't fight with the president and vice president when you don't speak the language properly, right? As you already said, they're like, are you sure you're fluent enough to get in this crap right now in this situation? And so that was a huge error to do, right? To say, look, JD, but then importantly, what was the statement? He was disregarding what he said. Like, listen,
you're gonna love it.
You're talking about negotiating with Putin, but you can't negotiate with Putin. You're essentially a fool to say that you can negotiate with this guy. He must be made to lose the war first, and then you have to give me a war guarantee. And so that was when Vance said, not, hey, how dare you call me JD, but I can't believe, he actually said, like, actually astonished, wow, I can't believe you want to litigate this right here in public with us. Because guess what? You're going to lose the argument now. You might have had a chance backstage, I think was the implication there. But dude, you're going to come at me like this? But the thing is too, they should have already agreed. You know, everybody talks about the deal. Well, which deal? You're talking about a ceasefire and Russia stays where they are? Or you're just talking about this mineral deal and then who knows what's going to happen in peace negotiations later, et cetera, right? Most of the actual minerals are not rare earth minerals, but there are other minerals in the country, but they're all under Russian control in the Donbass. So now I think there must be some east of the river there, but mostly it's wheat fields, and those have already been gangsterized by Cargill and Archer Daniels Midland and Monsanto Company back in the Obama years.
Little shit.
So I don't know if they're still there now. They might be biding their time until the war ends to go back in and monopolize all that grain, or triopolize it, I guess. But it used to be illegal for foreign multinational corporations to come in and buy up all that Ukrainian grain, but America just overthrows the government when the wrong guys win over there, so they changed the law to make it okay. So that's a huge part of, you know, I don't know exactly their role in lobbying for the war, but it's a huge part of American-based multinational corporations' interests in Ukraine is all that grain, not just the potential natural gas resources and coal and iron and whatever in the east.
Yeah, I know.
So it seems to me that coming out of this, you know, this altercation in the Oval Office, I mean, look, the big Donald Trump did announce he's halting all weapon sales to Ukraine. It does seem like, and why don't you kind of alluded to, maybe we could talk about this. Yeah, well, that's, I mean, it really is something. I mean, it is there's nothing more dangerous you can do in DC than end a war. I mean, that is a grave crime to them. So that really is high crimes and misdemeanors. I mean, that's the worst crime you can commit, is ending a war. So he might have to get impeached.
And they really mean it. I mean, even when I say this, I know it sounds silly. Like if somebody was too young or not paying attention at the time or just on vacation or something, if I tell you, I know it sounds nuts to say, but it's really true. The third time ever that the Congress impeached the President of the United States of America. It was Donald Trump for temporarily holding up an arms shipment to Ukraine, which the Ukrainians all agreed they didn't even notice was late. What late shipment? I don't even know what you're talking about. We weren't even due another crate for another 6 weeks or whatever it was. Nothing happened at all in the name of an extortion that did not take place. The whole thing was completely phony. It's unbelievable.
Well, they all called it a quid pro quo, but it wasn't. There was no. It was an attempted quid pro quo that wasn't even clearly like.
Not even, yeah.
Well, it's because the truth is that for Donald Trump, like if Donald Trump had asked them to manipulate evidence or had asked them to frame Joe Biden, then you'd have a real, you know, like you'd have something there. You'd have like a case on your hands. But to ask them to investigate behavior that is questionably criminal. It's just like, and then he never got the investigation, and they got the weapons. I mean, I remember arguing about this at the time. I go, here's where your case really falls apart, okay? None of this ever happened. And so, like, what are you really arguing?
It's the biggest asterisk in the whole world, too, which is that the FBI had Hunter Biden's laptop for 3 months leading up to the impeachment, which was in January of 20. And so on that laptop, anyone can now read emails back and forth between Hunter Biden and the leaders of Burisma, promising them that he's going to intervene in American politics to protect them from prosecution. It's all right there. And then what do they do? Not only did they not leak that, this is the FBI, the land of 10,000 leaks against Donald Trump. They got the biggest leak in the world that would spare him in the middle of being impeached. And they keep that all buried under wraps and behind a grand jury and whatever it is. And then what do they do with it? In the months in the lead up to the election, when they know that Giuliani also has the laptop, and this is going to be the Republicans' big October surprise, they go to all the social media companies and the major media companies and tell them, beware of incoming Russian disinformation accusing Hunter Biden of doing something wrong with this gas company, Burisma. And so then when it comes out, they're able to censor the entire thing. You're talking about rigging the election. And it was the FBI and the CIA that did it. His own 100% did it to him. And then, it's unbelievable.
Right, and literally, I mean, this is like, I mean, you have every piece of evidence. I mean, because it sounds crazy to say this, but this is really what they did. And that even when Rogan asked Zuckerberg about the Hunter Biden story, his first response was, well, the FBI came and told us that this big Russian dump was coming. And so that was obviously that. And then they came out and said that was the Russian disinformation, right? When they signed that famous, infamous letter. And so,
we know that the New York Times' Scott Shane was at the tabletop exercise where they warned him about all of this. And then when all the censorship regime came out with the laptop, he didn't say nothing about it. Same for Noah Schachman at Rolling Stone, who is otherwise most famous for being, for helping to cover up the most disgusting, unspeakable crimes of his buddy, James Gordon Meek from ABC News.
Yeah. Well, so it seems to me, let's get in a little bit to like this. I mean, you touched a little bit on the mineral stuff and the mineral deal, but I think it seems to me that possibly the best thing to come out of this fiasco in the Oval Office is that maybe Donald Trump does just walk away from this silly idea. And, you know, there is, you know, as you know, me and you have talked about this a lot over the years, and I will like, you know, I'll kind of preface this by saying that I'm quite happy with some of the things coming out of this administration. I mean, it's been a mixed bag. There's been some really positives and there's been some negatives. But that already, from our perspective, is like, oh my God, we never get positives. Like, this is amazing. Like, at least something's happening. I love that the even just the way that Elon Musk and Donald Trump have kind of mainstreamed the idea of how corrupt and wasteful the government is with our money is great. And the stuff on Ukraine really has been the best part, probably, of all of it. The problem with Donald Trump seems to be that, now I know I'm repeating myself from the last show, but I want to get your thoughts on this. But it's like everything good about Donald Trump is always instinctual. It's always like his gut tells him, you know, this doesn't make sense. 20 years of war and we're spending $8 trillion and what do we have to show for? That's bad business, you know? But none of it ever comes from like a philosophical grounding or a deep knowledge of the story, of the history. And so he's very susceptible to getting distracted by shiny objects. You know, it's very like, this war is bad business. It doesn't make any sense. And someone will be like, we could take the oil. He goes, well, now we're talking business. You know, and like, you could get this, and it does seem to me that he constantly he was going back and forth for the whole campaign for 24. He would go back and forth between saying like perfect stuff and then saying like Europe should pay more, you know, like as if like, oh, okay, it would be okay to keep the war going as long as Europe was paying more. But then sometimes he'd say like and it does seem to me that he was, at least the way he was presenting it publicly, was that he was selling this to Zelensky as like look, this is kind of the best security guarantee that you can get from us. Like, if we're in business together, then if Putin comes and messes with you, he's kind of messing with us too. But it can't be stated enough that that's the whole point, is that we don't want to do that. And that's what this whole war started over to begin with. And you know, I know it's easy to get, look, like you wrote a very big book on this subject. There's a lot of very interesting details in there, and I know people argue about all of this stuff, but it's almost like to zoom out and just look at how insane this policy is, that even when the Soviet Union existed, when there actually was the Soviet Union, we only gave the security guarantees to Western Europe. Not even the eastern part of Germany had a security guarantee. And now we're what are we talking about? A security guarantee for Luhansk? Like, what is going on? That we would think that it's just such madness. And it's like Donald Trump, while he's correct in wanting to end the thing, he just doesn't even get that part of it. That the whole lesson here should be like, no, the last thing we want. To me, it was appalling to have Zelensky demanding security guarantees from us. Like, what? You're entitled to us? I mean, what is the security guarantee? You're saying we have to be ready to fight a war on behalf of your country? Sorry, screw you. No, we don't. All right, guys, let's take a moment and thank our sponsor for today's show, which is Monetary Metals. I love this company. They are truly revolutionizing the precious metal space, and just great people who run the company as well. As many of you know, gold prices have been breaking all-time highs in 2024, but now, because of Monetary Metals, you can get your gold to work for you, generating interest income every month, paid in additional ounces of physical gold. You can earn up to 5% on your gold and silver in their lease offerings, and accredited investors can even earn double-digit returns in their bond offerings. Again, all the interest is paid in ounces, which are stored for free on your behalf. So if you're tired of your gold and silver collecting dust at home, or worse, racking up fees having your metal professionally stored, check out monetary-metals.com to learn how you can start putting your metal to work today. That's monetary-metals.com. All right, let's get back into the show.
I don't know why I keep healing myself.
Yeah, you know, Kyle Anslone
Flip of the buttons.
has a great show on YouTube, and he had
I need to switch up my controls.
clips of these congressmen talking about, it'll have to be like the Korean model where we'll say forever. This is how John McCain talked about Iraq
Right.
20 years ago. That we can never come home from there. And that just makes no sense at all.
McCain understand?
If you're not willing to fight for them now, but you're willing to fight for them then, after they've already lost, what's the point of that? The whole thing is crazy. And then having some workers there as a security guarantee, some miners that essentially they'll serve as a tripwire for war. That Russia would always think not just twice but even 3 times about invading because American miners could get caught up in it and they don't want trouble with us. Well, if you're gonna do that, then it would make more logical sense to put combat forces there who could actually be a deterrent of some kind. Not that I'm recommending that, but I'm just saying it makes no sense to have, like we have in Korea. Our soldiers are not there to really, there's not enough of them there to deter an attack or to defeat an attack from North Korea, probably. But they are a tripwire. That means if North Korea ever attacks South Korea, our guys will be caught up in it, and that'll mean the rest of the USA is also coming. And so, it just makes no sense whatsoever to this whole damn war, Dave, has been fought for the principle that Ukraine can too join NATO today and the long-term future from now, which we're absolutely not willing to let them in now, which might have been a deterrent, although I think it would have caused the war sooner, but we're not willing to give them a war guarantee. But we're willing to help them get into and lose a 3-year war, on the principle that no one else can say that they can't join. And so, back to, as I say in the book over and over again, I cite all of these hawks, not the opponents of NATO expansion, and which included not just our heroes like Pat Buchanan and Ron Paul, but and Ted Galen Carpenter and other of our guys. but including vast parts of the foreign policy establishment were against this. But then even the expanders, like Richard Holbrooke, Zbigniew Brzezinski, and Henry Kissinger and others, they all said, well, of course we have to make a special exception for Ukraine. Of course, they have to have some kind of, they all said the same thing.
Yep.
Like Austria or Finland during the last Cold War, where they don't have troops occupying their country from either side. They're not in NATO and they're not in the Warsaw Pact, and they're just neutral, and will do the same kind of thing for Ukraine. Forgive me if I'm being redundant. I forgot what I said on your show last time, but there's a guy named Ken Pollock, who was sort of the liberal hawk who told all the liberal Democrats it was a good idea to support W. Bush's war in 2003. He was like best buddies and writing partners with a guy named O'Hanlon, Michael O'Hanlon, who's maybe a little bit more prominent, but they're sort of alternate egos, these guys. Anyway, so they're like, you know, Brookings Institution guys, right? Like very center-left liberal Democrat war hawks.
One at first.
And he wrote a monograph that came out in 2018 saying we've got to, you know, have a new treaty that guarantees no further NATO expansion and neutrality for Ukraine, and there's permanent arrangement, security structure. And he had war guarantees built into it and the rest too. But still, like, it was important that he was recognizing that we have gone too far in trying to take Ukraine away from Russia. And of course they're reacting just like everybody knew that they would. And so we should, you know, call it off here before a real war breaks out, before it gets so much worse than this, at that time, low-level civil war under, you know, the partially implemented Minsk II deal, let's say. And so, so they all knew better. They all knew this was the consensus, was that we shouldn't do this, that it makes no sense to bring them into NATO and give them an Article 5. If Russia knew that was happening, they would invade before the ceremony and the ink was dry on the page. Or they would, you know, immediately test the alliance by moving right in there. As Putin said back in 2014, although, you know, a little bit optimistic, he said I could be in Kiev in 2 weeks. In fact, he did. His guys did get almost to Kiev before what? They stopped because they were in the middle of negotiating a peace deal, one that America and Britain ruined. This is after the war had already begun. The Istanbul deal, which would be the basis of the deal that they're trying to get right now. And at the time, of course, the two major issues was NATO expansion and the ongoing civil war. And they were willing to accept the Donbass, Luhansk, and Donetsk both staying in Ukraine under a strong federalism type situation, but still as part of Ukraine, not completely independent and not part of the Russian Federation, if they could have got the deal. And, you know, you quoted Jens Stoltenberg earlier. You almost had it right. You just added an R, but Stoltenberg, you're right. He had cited that treaty, that Russia proposed a treaty to NATO and the United States. Just sign this very simple deal, and this won't happen. And they basically just ignored that. And I'm sorry, I was going to make one more point there.
Well, Stoltenberg was bragging about it. He was bragging that, like, see, and now Vladimir Putin just got more NATO expansion. So, look at that. You know, so like, but the thing that he gave away, which is, sure, go ahead.
On top of him was Zelensky himself gave that statement to CNN where he said, they told me behind the scenes, look, we're not going to bring you into NATO. But in public, we're going to pretend like we're going to someday, and we want you to continue to act like that's going to happen and all this. And he explained all this in frustration on CNN, that they had him in this weird bind where they were promising that, you know, someday we'll protect you, but not now, even though we know promising to someday protect you now is going to get you into a war now. And he's saying, what the hell kind of a situation is this for you to put me in? And then, but he continued to go along.
Yeah, you know, it is, you know, like as John Mearsheimer's now famous line back in 2014 was that the U.S. is leading Ukraine down the primrose path. And it is, I mean, it's one of the great ironies of all of this is that all of the people who like changed their flags to their Twitter bios to Ukrainian flags and all the hawks on this, it's like they're the worst enemies of the Ukrainian people. And it certainly seems that Zelensky, you know, another lie, or at least quasi lie that was told, you know, about this whole thing is how much the Ukrainians want to fight, and they just want to fight and want to fight. Except like then you start seeing the stories of how like violently conscripted this army is. I think there were over 100,000 people were charged with desertion or something like that. It's like, well, it doesn't sound like those people wanted to fight that much. I'm sure there are some others who did, but it is, you know, it's obviously the best thing for the Ukrainian people would be to end this conflict. And you know, I guess one of the things that people will come back at us with, as you hear on like you know, on the Piers Morgan show or something like that, when we're debating some of these guys, they'll say like, well, look at you know, it's not right that Vladimir Putin gets to invade this country and then keeps parts of their territory, and it's just like, it, you know, that can't be rewarded or something like that. But as you pointed out, which is, I didn't watch the full of your episode, but I did see one of the clips on Twitter of your latest appearance, where you at one point asked, and I'm guessing no one gave you a good answer on this, but you asked like, okay, so what's the plan here, guys? Like, what do you want to do about it? Damn. You know, the way I put it, as I've put this, I've used this example like several times because I think there is this kind of like empire mentality that Americans are plagued with. But when you say things like that, I think to a lot of Americans that does kind of ring true. Like, yeah, we can't just let people do that, you know? And what? Well, if they do that, then China's going to go take Taiwan, which is another assertion of what will happen, without much evidence to like demonstrate that it's going to. But I said this on Piers Morgan the other day, and it seemed to hit home with some of the panel. But I was like, look, let's just say we decided we were going to take Mexico City. Like, for whatever reason, let's just say that the American people wanted to do it. The political class wanted to do it. We had the political will. We're going to take Mexico City. What could Russia do about that? What could China do about that? Should they allow us? Isn't it just an absurd question already? Because you go, as soon as you go, should China allow us? You go, allow? What do you mean allow? You have no say in this. And so like, it is, I guess, a little bit of a weird like thing for libertarians like us to be saying. It's not our ideal scenario in the world. It's just accepting the world as it is. But like, yeah, I guess it kind of sucks to be a little state next to a big, more powerful state.
Can't escape.
You know, just as Kamala Harris explained, Russia's a great big country, Ukraine's a small country, but like that is kind of the way of the world, and the idea that we can just undo that is not living in reality.
Well, especially when we're the ones doing it. I mean, this is the whole thing. You know, the famous Henry Kissinger quote where he says, to be America's enemy is dangerous, to be America's friend is fatal. What he was talking about was building up groups and then stabbing them in the back, leaving them high and dry. And I forget exactly, I think he's talking about the Kurds then, which he betrayed the Kurds at least twice himself, I think. It may have been a reference to the Hmong tribesmen of Laos and kind of northwestern Vietnam, that the CIA backed them to take on the North Vietnamese. And it was like, okay, well, we're leaving. Good luck to you guys. After we just, you know, encourage you to turn yourselves into the avowed deadly enemies of these people who have so much more power than you do. So bye, and didn't even help them get out of there, you know? They do the same thing to the Kurds over and over again. I don't know, the Iraqi Kurds are in a pretty good spot with America now, but they've been stabbed in the back by America at least twice in the 1980s, and then again after the end of the first Iraq War. And then the Syrian Kurds in Turkey, in northeastern Syria, claim we love them, and then built up the Islamist caliphate that became their absolute deadly enemy when it conquered, you know, all of that land in eastern Syria and western Iraq. We had to go in there and fight another war for them, and we're still there protecting them now. Otherwise, what? They'll be overrun by our other allies, the Turks, and they're, again, agents on the move, Al-Qaeda, that now rules Damascus and the rest of western Syria. And this kind of thing happens over and over again. And so here, I mean, what could be a worse thing than to get your friend into a fight that you know he can't win? And then to keep pushing him out there. Stay out there. Lindsey Graham, quote unquote, how dare you not lower your draft age to 18? Right now it's 25, but they try to send the older men to the front and leave the younger men behind to do, you know, equipment and logistics and whatever, the background stuff, because their population is decimated and they're terrified of losing all of their reproductive age males. And so they're sending all middle-aged guys to go and get ground up. And then Lindsey Graham won't stand for it and stomps his foot and says the draft age should be 18 and those boys should be at the front. How in the hell are you ever going to win this war if you don't send your 18-year-olds to the front? Which is, I'm sorry, but just
so
none of
messed up.
his damn business to be insisting that another nation do to sacrifice for his goals for them or his goals for America's geopolitical contest with Russia. Where they, there's a clip of, was it Kissinger or I confuse these absolute idiot Russiagate Democrats from the House, Dave, from that era. I think it was Kissinger was saying just yesterday, there was a clip going around on X of him saying that, look, we're killing Russians and no American soldiers are dying. It's the best bang for our buck we've ever spent. And I have a whole section of quotations like that in the book.
Oof.
Where over and over again, these pundits and writers and politicians in America say this. And in numerous cases, they don't even mention the Ukrainian deaths at all. They'll say Russian soldiers are dying and American soldiers are being preserved. It's great. So the Russian soldiers have lives to be degraded, and our soldiers their lives have value to be degraded, and our soldiers' lives have value to be preserved. The Ukrainians aren't even worth mentioning at all.
Do you remember? Was it a?
Get over there.
Do you remember? I'm sure you'll remember because you're Scott Horton. Do you remember? I think it was Wolf Blitzer who asked Rand Paul a few years back about Yemen, and he seemed kind of confused, and he went like, so to you this is a moral issue? Like he was like, because what I'm hearing is like this is really good for business, but like, so you're saying you have a moral problem with backing a genocide? Like
Want the treasures.
Yeah, I think he even said like this could really cost the American arms firms that are selling these
There we go.
weapons. And Rand Paul was as flabbergasted as Wolf Blitzer. Like, what did you just say, dude? I'm as confused as you are, Wolf. What in the world, man?
Well, I had my version of this moment when I was debating Josh Hammer at Princeton a few weeks ago, and he turned to me at one of his questions to me was he was like, so do you make moral considerations when considering foreign policy? And I was like almost taken back by the question. I was like, well. Like, yeah, that's a big part of it.
I remember that.
Sure. And I just say that just to make the point that like you kind of can't overstate how fucking evil these goddamn people's like worldview is.
Yep.
Like where they can totally just accept the idea that it's like, yeah, like I'm pushing a policy that will lead to slaughter, but I think that all things being considered, it's Madeleine Albright, just like, yeah, that price is worth it. Was it 500,000 dead kids? Okay, worth it. Like that's the mentality.
This is my 4th grade education in government school, man, is that, when they teach you about war and stuff, that, yeah, civilians in the other country, they die, but that's their problem. That's not our problem to consider. And there may be, they might allude to the Geneva Conventions and some rules.
And then they
war,
say that you're
but
heartless
it's no
for
sin
considering all this.
for your government to kill people in another country. That's between them and their government, not between us. And certainly. And then they'll turn it around and they'll say, no, see, the evil, amoralist, realist strategists, they only care about balance of power politics. They don't care about morality at all.
Thank you, Scott.
We want a morality-based foreign policy.
Yep.
That's why we have to invade Iraq to stop Saddam Hussein. Don't you know he throws people in a giant human shredder?
Yep.
And whatever nonsense they make up to invoke your emotions and say, yes, this is the morality-based foreign policy. America can do no wrong in stopping evil around the world. So those are your 2 choices, either Henry Kissinger or Paul Wolfowitz.
Yep. Do you remember? It was like I guess a couple. What is it? Oh well, it must have been. It was the 20th anniversary of the war in Iraq, so 2 years ago. So that Brett Stevens wrote a piece in the New York Times called like 20 years later, why I was still right. So it's like the last guy defending the Iraq war. Like I think it's him and Cheney.
Yeah.
I think I remember that.
And I think
John Bolton. They're the last three in America.
those are the last. Like it's like even John McCain, you know, admitted on his deathbed that it was you know, it's but there's so he writes this piece about like 20 years later. I was right to cheerlead the war in Iraq. You know, I think he was writing for an Israeli. I think he was writing for the Jerusalem Post at the time.
He's the editor.
Isn't that convenient? Huh? See how that works. But so and he writes this whole piece, and there was not one mention of the deaths from the war. It was just like a piece like, hey, Saddam Hussein was a brutal dictator, and you know, now they're having some elections, and they're an imperfect democracy, but they're coming up there. It's definitely better than it was back then. And so as if you could take a snapshot of, like, forget even the argument, which I think there's a pretty strong argument that for the average Iraqi life was actually better under Saddam Hussein. But regardless of that, the idea that like you could take a snapshot of Iraq under Saddam Hussein and then take a snapshot of Iraq today, and if today is better than Saddam Hussein, then policy justified. But like you're missing the part where you killed 1 million people in the middle of that. Like, I don't know, life ain't better for them. It's over for them.
Yep. I remember when Bill Clinton left office, he goes, well, at the end of the day, I'd like to think that we did a little bit more good than harm. So, you know,
like that's the... Yeah. But there is, and it's almost like, you know, it is some like collective like sociopathy. Like there's something about when you have a mentality that like people can be crushed. And that, you know what I mean? People are essentially pawns on a chessboard, and as long as you're moving in the right direction, then it doesn't, that's like an irrelevant factor. It is unbelievable, the levels of evil that can lead to. And then you end up supporting something like, you know, all these people getting slaughtered in Ukraine for nothing, all for nothing.
Yep, and look, just like on the Piers Morgan show yesterday, anybody can log on to X and see it all day. The Hawks, they only talk in these vague analogies, and they only talk in glittering generalities, and they say, oh, we're turning our back and stabbing our friends in the back and all these things. They never say, what's the solution to the problem? Well, what we need to do is send in the 82nd Airborne and the U.S. Navy, and that would solve the problem, right? Like if we did like George W. Bush in Iraq and sent the 3rd Infantry Division and the Marine Corps and everybody in there to break things as much as possible, then yeah, potentially they could drive the Russians out of Ukraine south and east. They could also potentially start a hydrogen bomb war, which Joe Biden was not willing to risk. To that degree, right? He has some special operations forces there serving as advisors and stuff like that. But I've never seen that our guys are not fighting there. They're picking targets pretty close to fighting. But, but they weren't willing to risk that. Nobody's willing to really risk that. So this is the same thing that Obama said to Jeffrey Goldberg back in 2014. That ultimately, Ukraine is not really a vital American interest. It is a vital Russian one. And it's going to always mean more to them than us. And we're not really, as he put it, if people in Washington want to say that we should go to war for the Donbass, and let them say that. I don't hear anybody saying that. So if you're not willing to say that, then I don't know why we should sort of half-ass it, essentially.
Well, it's because, essentially because...
it was his fault. He overthrew the government, and he was responsible for the loss of Crimea. As he admits in there, it was a reaction to our transition of the government there, he said, which was completely correct. But he was also right. But now what are we going to do? We're going to double down? We're going to fight a war in the Donbass? No, we're not going to.
Well, it's an important point to make, because you're essentially calling their bluff. And, you know, it's like I made this point a lot just during the last 8 years of Donald Trump being the biggest political figure, where it's like, and it was really never more apparent than when he got shot. And really, I think this is a huge part of what won him the election, is that it immediately just called all of their bluffs. Because, like, you can't wish Hitler a speedy recovery, man. Like, if you do, then you didn't really believe he was Hitler. Like, you know Hitler. What I'm saying? Like, it's like if you're gonna talk the way MSNBC talks every day, then stay consistent. Celebrate when a dude takes a shot at him. Man, it's a shame he missed, right? I mean, if you're really telling me that a Hitlerian figure has risen and is the end of our democracy, then why exactly shouldn't I be rooting for that guy to get shot? And in a similar sense, you know, I'll all these guys, they're making the argument that we don't have to be worried about nuclear war. Putin's bluffing. He would never actually do that, but he is reconstituting the Soviet Union, and it's the most important fight for democracy ever that we maintain Ukrainian, I don't know what was Ukraine a democracy for 5 minutes? I mean, like, I don't know what, like, I guess in 2014 they overthrew the democratically elected leader, and then I guess they had a couple elections in between there, and then they suspended elections after.
Provide silence,
They
too.
suspended a portion of the
That's a pretty
George
good
Soros
one.
bragged to the New Yorker in 1995 that he rigged the election of 1994. And then you had America
you guys can see it right in the
overthrow
middle
and
there.
intervene in the election of 2004 and the Orange Revolution. Then they had a legit election in 2010. They overthrew that guy in 2013, 14. So, so yeah, it's not much of a democracy, and that's
That'll
why
come in handy.
even George Soros's Transparency International ranks them with the lowest kleptocracies on the planet, the
That's
most
kinda
corrupt
cool.
countries in the world. Their political and economic system are just nothing but cronyism from top to bottom, and everybody knows it, and nobody can even lie about it with a straight face. That was part of Biden's somewhat
Think I'll
convincing
go with that.
excuse for going after the prosecutor. There was the prosecutor wasn't going
217.
after everybody enough. Now he really ran up against the laugh test when he said he was mad that they weren't
155 to
prosecuting his
217,
son's company.
Absolutely.
Wait a minute.
So yeah, you can get 4, it
But
looks
boy,
like.
was there a lot of corruption for him to go after there if he was picking the right sides,
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And it's always been corrupt under the Yanukovych government, Poroshenko's government, Zelensky's government. There's always just been like rampant corruption in Ukraine. It's got, but what was it? Yanukovych's son, I think, was like the 5th richest man in Ukraine, and he was like a dentist. Like, it just didn't even make sense at all. You're like, what? How? Yeah, it's like some crazy stat like that. Look, I know you had an out that was 5 minutes ago, so let me let you go get to your next show. Oh, the Libertarian Institute has their fund drive going on.
Excuse
mention
me.
that before we get out of here.
Yeah, thank you for remembering.
we're just
I
hitting you
forgot.
with everything.
Yes, I am the
Sneezes,
director of the
yawns,
Libertarian Institute. I got about
stretchings.
25 of the best writers and authors and podcasters. We're constantly putting out great new books and everything like that. And we've got
You're welcome.
$25,000 worth of matching funds
ASMR
right now. So
or
anything
whatever
you
the
donate
shit
to
that
the
is.
Institute gets doubled. You write it off on your taxes, and you get
Yeah,
and
clip
we have
it.
all kinds of great kickbacks, including books and stuff like that. So that's all at libertarianinstitute.org/donate. Thank you very much.
Absolutely, could not recommend it higher. There's no better organization to donate to. So thank you for taking the time, Scott. We'll talk again soon, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot more in the coming weeks and months of developments to talk about. Thank you very much, everybody, for listening. Catch you next time. Peace.
So, let's see here. I want to switch over, actually. As much as I don't want to stop playing this game. So I just want to beat it. Just want to... Actually, you know what? Yeah, let's just keep it going. I'll just turn it down a little more. Not right. I just need to get out of this. Looking for the full speed. Is it? Jesus Christ. 2 hours? No way. He is a monster. 20 minutes in.
President Vance.
Alright, let's get into it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It's a great honor. Thank you very much. Speaker Johnson, Vice President Vance, the First Lady of the United States,
More than 20 minutes. Just start the speech. Start the speech. Chuck Schumer over there. Looks like an old librarian.
members of the United States Congress, thank you very much. And to my fellow citizens, America is back. Six weeks ago, I stood beneath the dome of this Capitol and proclaimed the dawn of the golden age of America. From that moment on, it has been nothing but swift and unrelenting action to usher in the greatest and most successful era in the history of our country. We have accomplished more in 43 days than most administrations accomplished in 4 years or 8 years, and we are just getting started. I return to this chamber tonight to report that America's momentum is back, our spirit is back, our pride is back, our confidence is back, and the American dream is surging bigger and better than ever before. The American dream is unstoppable, and our country is on the verge of a comeback, the likes of which the world has never witnessed and perhaps will never witness again.
I love his podium sway.
Been anything like it.
Just
The presidential election of November 5th was a mandate
Trump.
like has not been seen in many
Oh, I'm at a
decades.
cafefe again.
We won all 7 swing states, giving us an electoral college victory of 312 votes.
Get the podium
We
sway.
won the popular vote by big numbers and won counties in our country.
Almost looks like he's trying to like push it over. Oh, what do we got here? Vance, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? I'm right
And
here.
won counties in our country, 2,700 to 525. On a map that reads almost completely red for Republican. Now, for the first time in modern history, more Americans believe that our country is headed in the right direction than the wrong direction. In fact, it's an astonishing record, 27-point swing, the most ever.
Looks right at him. Vance, you sat down for some golf.
Likewise, Small business optimism saw its single largest one-month gain ever recorded, a 41-point jump.
Dude. I don't know if the right makes
Members
much
are
noise.
directed to uphold and maintain decorum in the House and
Yeah,
to cease
like-
any further disruptions. That's your warning.
Sounds like Antifa in the background.
Members are engaging in willful and continuing breach of decorum, and the chair is prepared to direct the Sergeant-at-Arms to restore order to the joint session.
Wait, what just happened?
Likewise, small business optimism saw its single largest one-month gain ever recorded, a 41-point jump.
Members are directed to uphold and maintain decorum in the House and to cease any further disruptions. That's your warning. Members are engaging in willful and continuing breach of decorum, and the chair is prepared to direct the Sergeant-at-Arms to restore order to the joint session.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he did warn them. You can't be children about this. It's not the rules for thee and not for me. You can't pull this type of shit. Yeah, just kick him out.
Mr. Green, take your seat. Take your seat, sir. Take your seat. Finding that members continue to engage in willful and concerted disruption of proper decorum, the chair now directs the Sergeant-at-Arms to restore order. Remove this gentleman from the chamber.
Damn. We're not even like 5 minutes in. Just already getting kicked. And you know the left is going to be like, can you believe this authoritarianism? It's like, no, he's being a douchebag and he wouldn't shut up. So yeah, I got kicked.
Members are directed to uphold and maintain decorum in the House. Mr. President, you continue.
Thank you. Over the past 6 weeks, I have signed nearly 100 executive orders and taken more than 400 executive actions, a record to restore common sense, safety, optimism, and wealth all across our wonderful land. The people elected me to do the job, and I'm doing it.
Oh my God.
In fact, it has been stated by many that the first month of our presidency, it's our presidency, is the most successful in the history of our nation. By many. And what makes it even more impressive is that you know who number 2 is? George Washington. How about that? How about that? I don't know about that list, but we'll take it. Within hours of taking the oath of office, I declared a national
That's where I'm like, I
emergency on our
can't
southern
tell if
border,
he's kidding or
and
not.
I deployed the U.S. military and border patrol to repel the invasion of our country. And what a job they've done. As a result, illegal border crossings last month were by far the lowest ever recorded, ever.
That was pretty cool.
They heard my words and they chose not to come. much easier that way. In comparison, under Joe Biden, the worst president in American history, there were hundreds of thousands of illegal crossings a month. And virtually
was
all
one of the
them,
worst.
including murderers, drug dealers,
He couldn't
gang
make that
members, and
argument.
people from mental institutions and insane asylums, were released into our country. Who would want to do that? This is my 5th such speech to Congress. And once again, I look at the Democrats in front of me, and I realize there is absolutely nothing I can say to make them happy or to make them stand or smile or applaud. Nothing I can do. I could find a cure to the most devastating disease, a disease that would wipe out entire nations, or announce the answers to the greatest economy in history, or the stoppage of crime to the lowest levels ever recorded. And these people sitting right here will not clap, will not stand, and certainly will not cheer for these astronomical achievements. They won't do it, no matter what.
Finger pointing gets us
5
nowhere,
times
Steve.
I've been up here. It's very sad, and it just shouldn't be this way.
How do I have 4,500 health?
So Democrats sitting before me, for just this one night, why not join us in celebrating so many incredible wins for America?
Conflict resolved.
For the good of our nation, let's work together and let's truly make America great again.
It's kind of a peace offering. I mean, but they view it as on his terms, so they ain't gonna have it.
Every day my administration is fighting to deliver the change America needs to bring a future that America deserves, and we're doing it. This is a time for big dreams and bold action. Upon taking office, I imposed an immediate freeze on all federal hiring, a freeze on all new federal regulations, and a freeze on all foreign aid.
Foreign aid. Yep.
I terminated the ridiculous Green New Scam. I withdrew from the unfair Paris Climate Accord, which was costing us trillions of dollars that other countries were not paying. I withdrew from the corrupt World Health Organization. And I also withdrew from the anti-American UN Human Rights Council.
Activating combat.
We ended all of Biden's environmental restrictions that were making our country far less safe and totally unaffordable. And importantly, we ended the last administration's insane electric vehicle mandate, saving our auto workers and companies from economic destruction.
And our power grid, for God's sakes. Whoever thought that was going to work was retarded.
To unshackle our economy, I have directed that for every one new regulation, 10 old regulations must be eliminated, just like I did in my very successful first day. And in that first term, we set records on ending unnecessary rules and regulations like no other president had done before. We ordered all federal workers to return to the office. They will either show up for work in person or be removed from their job. And we've ended weaponized government where, as an example, a sitting president is allowed to viciously prosecute his political opponent like me.
Activating combat mode.
How did that work out?
He's just up there taunting him. How do you like me now?
And I have stopped all government censorship and brought back free speech in America. It's back.
Yeah, it looks like he's trying to tip over the podium. I love it. Just. And then his turn.
And 2 days ago, I signed an order making English the official language of the United States of America.
That'd be nice. I have several coworkers that don't even speak any English, and it is not easy to
I
get shit done.
renamed the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America.
And then I'm talking like several languages between Spanish, Guatemalan. I think it was like one from
And
Honduras.
likewise, I renamed for a great president, William McKinley, Mount McKinley again.
A lot of these, it's like, who gives a shit?
Beautiful Alaska. We love Alaska.
In the Gulf of America.
We've ended
like,
the
who
tyranny of so-called
cares?
diversity,
Get us out of
equity,
war.
and inclusion policies
Get us out of proxy
all
wars.
across the entire federal government and indeed the private
Fix our
sector
medical system.
and our military. And our country will be woke no longer. We
It's just
believe
human
that whether
rights.
you are a doctor, an accountant,
Okay.
a lawyer, or an air traffic
Okay.
controller, you should be hired and promoted based on skill and competence, not race or gender. Very important.
I swear, the standing up and the sitting down. Kamala and Pelosi
You should
did
be
that.
hired based on
just-
merit. And the Supreme Court,
cringy.
in a brave and very powerful decision, has allowed us to do so. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Said thank you before they
We
even
have
clapping. That
removed
was
the
great.
poison of critical race theory from our public schools, and I signed an order making it the official policy of the United States government that there are only two genders, male and female. I also signed an executive order to ban men from playing in women's sports.
Yeah, just stay standing. Just stay standing. Don't even sit back down. Don't even do it. My legs are hurting for you.
3 years ago, Peyton McNabb was an all-star high school athlete, one of the best, preparing for a future in college sports. But when her girls' volleyball match was invaded by a male, he smashed the ball so hard in Peyton's face, causing traumatic brain injury, partially paralyzing her right side and ending her athletic career. It was a shot like she's never seen before.
Yeah, I've
She's
seen
never
that. That was on
anything
Meet the
like it.
Parents.
Peyton is here tonight in the
Well,
gallery.
Ben
and Peyton,
Stiller,
from now on,
spike to the
schools
face.
will kick the men off the girls' team, or they will lose all federal funding.
It is weird though. It's like feminists are in a weird pickle right now. They don't know where to stand on this one. Obviously, you should be standing with the women, but things have gotten so dicey with the T and the LGBT that it's like
And if you really want to
Yeah.
see numbers,
awfully quiet.
just take a look at what happened in the women's boxing, weightlifting, track and field, swimming, or cycling, where a male recently finished a long-distance race 5 hours and 14 minutes ahead of a woman for a new record by 5 hours. Broke the record by 5 hours. It's demeaning for women, and it's very bad for our country. We're not going to put up with it any longer.
Maybe it's a fire. I'm gonna come back to that one. Maybe.
What I have just described is only a small fraction of the common sense revolution that is now, because of us, sweeping the entire world. Common sense has become a common theme, and we will never go back. Never. Never going to let that happen. Among my very highest priorities is to rescue our economy and get dramatic and immediate relief to working families. As you know, we inherited from the last administration an economic catastrophe and an inflation nightmare. Their policies drove up energy prices, pushed up grocery costs, and drove the necessities of life out of reach for millions and millions of Americans. They've never had anything like this. We suffered the worst inflation in 48 years, but perhaps even in the history of our country. They're not sure. As president, I'm fighting every day to reverse this damage and make America affordable again. Joe Biden especially let the price of eggs get out of control. The egg price is out of control.
Stop
And
with the
we're
blame
working
game
hard
on
to
the
get
eggs.
it back down. Secretary, do a good
Bird
job on that.
flu.
You inherited a
Freaking
total
birds.
mess from the previous administration. Do a good job.
It's like they're blaming each other, and it's like you can't even blame each other. Neither of you are blamed for that one.
A major focus of our fight to defeat inflation is rapidly reducing the cost of energy. The previous administration cut the number of new oil and gas leases by 95%,
Oops, that's
slowed pipeline construction to a halt, and closed more than 100 power plants. We are opening up many of those power plants right now.
So I was just getting my ass kicked. Let's give it a shot.
And frankly, we have never seen anything like it. That's why on my first day in office, I declared a national energy emergency. As you've heard me say many times, we have more liquid gold under our feet than any nation on earth, and by far. And now I fully authorize the most talented team ever assembled to go and get it. It's called
Activating combat
Drill, Baby, Drill. My administration is also working on a gigantic natural gas pipeline in Alaska, among the largest in the world, where Japan, South Korea, and other nations want to be our partner with investments of trillions of dollars each. There's never been anything like that one. It will be
What did that
truly
even do?
spectacular. It's all set to go. The permitting is gotten. And later this week, I will also take historic action to dramatically expand production of critical minerals and rare earths here in the USA.
Rare earths.
To further combat inflation, we will not only be reducing the cost of energy, but will be ending the flagrant waste of taxpayer dollars. And to that end, I have created the brand new Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE. Perhaps you've heard of it. Perhaps. Which is headed by Elon Musk, who is in the gallery tonight.
Oh yeah, that's what was killing me before. Uh-oh. That might kill me. Yep, it did. The tomahawk.
Thank you, William. You're working very hard. He didn't need this. He didn't need this. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Everybody here, even this side, appreciates it, I believe. They
Just
just don't
taunting
want
him.
to admit that. Just listen to some of the appalling waste we have already identified. $22 billion from HHS to provide free housing and cars for illegal aliens. $45 million for diversity, equity, and inclusion scholarships in Burma. $40 million to improve the social and economic inclusion of sedentary migrants. Nobody knows what that is.
Nobody knows what that.
$8 million to promote LGBTQI+ in the African nation of Lesotho, which nobody has ever heard of. $60 million for indigenous peoples and Afro-Colombian empowerment in Central America. $60 million. $8 million for making mice transgender. This is real. $32 million
is
for a
real.
left-wing propaganda operation in Moldova. $10 million for male circumcision in Mozambique. $20 million for the Arab Sesame Street in the Middle East. It's a
Pakistan
program.
or Iraq.
$20 million for a program.
I think both, actually.
$1.9 billion to recently created Decarbonization of Homes Committee, headed up, and we know she's involved. Just at the last moment, the money was passed over by a woman named
yeah.
Stacey Abrams. Have you ever heard of her? A $3.5 million consulting contract for lavish fish monitoring. $1.5 million for voter confidence in Liberia.
Is he remembering all this, or is he
$14
reading
million
it?
for social cohesion in Mali.
He's got to be reading it.
$59 million
Yeah.
for illegal alien hotel rooms in New York City. He's a real estate developer. He's done very well. $250,000 to increase vegan local climate action innovation in Zambia. $42 million for social and behavior change in Uganda. $14 million for improving public procurement in Serbia. $47 million for improving learning outcomes in Asia. Asia's doing very well with learning. You know what we're doing. We could use it ourselves. And $101 million for DEI contracts at the Department of Education. The most ever paid, nothing even like it. Under the Trump administration, all of these scams, and they're far worse, but I didn't think it was appropriate to talk about them. They're so bad. Many more have been found out and exposed and swiftly terminated by a group of very intelligent, mostly young people, headed up by Elon, and we appreciate it. We found hundreds of billions of dollars of fraud.
I feel like it's like lunchtime. It's not even 10. Oh, I'm so hungry today. It's that lifting. I did do legs this week.
And we've taken back the money and reduced our debt to fight inflation and other things. Taken back a lot of that money. We got it just in time. This is just the beginning. The Government Accountability Office, a federal government office, has estimated annual fraud of over $500 billion in our nation, and we are working very hard to stop it. We're going to. We're also identifying shocking levels of incompetence and probable fraud in the Social Security program for our seniors, and that our seniors and people that we love rely on.
Combat mode.
Believe it or not, government databases list 4.7 million Social Security members from people aged 100 to 109 years old. It lists
Can't even tell what they're saying.
3.6 million
Old,
people from ages 110 to 119. I don't know any of them. I know some people that are rather elderly, but not quite that elderly. 3.47 million people from ages 120 to 129. 3.9 million people from ages 130 to 139. 3.5 million people from ages 140 to 149. And money is being paid to many of them. And we're searching right now. In fact, Pam, good luck. Good luck.
And
You're
who
gonna
knows if
find
those
it.
numbers are right,
A
but
lot of money is
I
paid
wouldn't
out
doubt
to
that
people
that actually just
because it
happening.
just keeps getting paid, and nobody does, and it really hurts
It's just what
Social Security. It hurts
state
our country. 1.3 million
monsters
people from
got
ages
accustomed to is laundering money through a lot
150
of
to
this stuff.
159 and over.
USAID is one of the biggest ones.
130,000 people, according to the Social Security databases, are age over 160 years old. We have a healthier country than I thought, Bobby.
He was just waiting to crack that joke. He's like, got him.
Including, to finish, 1,039 people between the ages of 220 and 229, one person between the age of 240 and 249, and one person is listed at 360 years of age. More than 100 years older than our country.
Oh shit. What was that? Odin?
But we're going to find
Do
out
it.
where that money's going.
Hit it.
And it's not going to be pretty.
Oh.
By slashing all of the fraud, waste, and theft we can find, we will defeat inflation, bring down mortgage rates, lower car payments and grocery prices, protect our seniors, and put more money in the pockets of American families.
And that's that. Thanks, Odin.
And today, interest rates took a beautiful drop, big, beautiful drop. It's about time. And in the near future, I want to do what has not been done in 24 years, balance the federal budget. We're going to balance it.
That's a tall order, Trump. I don't... You mean balance it as like stabilize it or get it back to zero? Because, yeah, he probably just means stabilize it. So very different things.
With that goal in mind, we have developed in great detail what we are calling the Gold Card, which goes on sale
Even if you
very, very
stabilize it,
soon.
though, that's a tall
For
order.
$5 million,
That'd be amazing.
we will allow the most successful job-creating people from all over the world to buy a path to U.S. citizenship. It's like the green card, but better and more sophisticated. And these people will have to pay tax in our country. They won't have to pay tax from where they came. The money that they've made, you wouldn't want to do that, but they have to pay tax, create jobs. They'll also be taking people out of colleges and paying for them so that we can keep them in our country instead of having them being forced out. Number one, at the top school, as an example, being forced out and not being allowed to stay and create tremendous numbers of jobs and great success for a company out there. So while we take out the criminals, killers, traffickers, and child predators who are allowed to enter our country under the open border policy of these people, the Democrats, the Biden administration, the open border insane policies that you've allowed to destroy our country, we will now bring in brilliant, hardworking, job-creating people. They're going to pay a lot of money, and we're going to reduce our debt with that money.
I hope... I never really heard the resolution of the HB1 visas, whatever that's called. It seems like that kind of just disappeared.
Americans
But yeah, like,
have given us a
America
mandate for
first.
bold
Make
and
sure that Americans
profound
are getting the
change.
job before we
For
bring
nearly
in a bunch
100
of
years,
people.
the federal bureaucracy has grown
least give
until
them
it
a
has
chance.
crushed our
Try to train
freedoms,
them.
ballooned our deficits, and held back America's potential in every possible way. The nation founded by pioneers and risk takers now drowns under millions and millions of pages of regulations and debt. Approvals that should take 10 days to get instead take 10 years, 15 years, and even 20 years before you're rejected. Meanwhile, we have hundreds of thousands of federal workers who have not been showing up to work. My administration will reclaim power from this unaccountable bureaucracy, and we will restore true democracy to America again. Any federal bureaucrat who resists this change will be removed from office immediately. Because we are draining the swamp. It's very simple. And the days of rule by unelected bureaucrats are over.
They're all laughing at it. Oh, probably because of you, man. Because when I thought that made sense. But no, we elected him. Unless they're that dumb. Which they
and the
probably
next
are.
phase of our plan to deliver the greatest economy in history is for this Congress to pass tax cuts for everybody. They're in there. They're waiting for you to vote. And I'm sure that the people on my right, I don't mean the Republican right, but my right here, I'm sure you're going to vote for those tax cuts, because otherwise I don't believe the people will ever vote you into office. So I'm doing you a big favor by telling you that. But I know this group is going to be voting for the tax. Thank you. It's a very, very big part of our plan. We had tremendous success in our first term with it. A very big part of our plan. We're seeking permanent income tax cuts all across the board. And to get urgently needed relief to Americans hit especially hard by inflation, I'm calling for no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and no tax on Social Security benefits for our great seniors.
It's pretty crazy.
And I also want to make interest payments on car loans tax deductible, but only if the car is made in America.
I did kind of wonder because if I got the job at Toyota,
And by the way, we're going to have growth
much
in
is
the
tariffs
auto
gonna
industry like
impact this?
nobody's ever seen. Plants are opening up all over the place. Deals are being made. Never seen. That's a combination of the election win and tariffs.
It's Japan, so hopefully it's
a
not
beautiful
as bad.
word, isn't it? That, along with our other policies, will allow our auto industry to absolutely boom. It's going to boom. Spoke to the majors today, all three, the top people, and they're so excited. In fact, already numerous car companies have announced that they will be building massive automobile plants in America, with Honda just announcing a new plant in Indiana, one of the largest anywhere in the world.
Toyota?
And this has taken place since our great victory on November 5th, a date which will hopefully go down as one of the most important in the history of our country. In addition, as part of our tax cuts, we want to cut taxes on domestic production and all manufacturing. And just as we did before, we will provide 100% expensing. It will be retroactive to January 20th, 2025. And it was one of the main reasons why our tax cuts were so successful in our first term, giving us the most successful economy in the history of our country. First term. We had a great first term. If you don't make your product in America, however, under the Trump administration, you will pay a tariff, and in some cases, a rather large one. Other countries have used tariffs against us for decades, and now it's our turn to start using them against those other countries. On average, the European Union, China, Brazil, India, Mexico, and Canada, have you heard of them? And countless other nations charge us tremendously higher tariffs than we charge them. It's very unfair. India charges us auto tariffs higher than 100%. China's average tariff on our products is twice what we charge them. And South Korea's average tariff is 4 times higher. Think of that, 4 times higher. And we give so much help militarily and in so many other ways to South Korea, but that's what happens. This is happening by friend and foe. This system is not fair to the United States and never was, and so on April 2nd, I wanted to make it April 1st, but I didn't want to be accused of April Fool's Day.
A little boy.
That's not, just one day was cost us a lot of money.
I know, Bruno. You must
But
want to
we're
find
going
them
to do
back.
it in April.
I'll bring
I'm a
them here
very
for you,
superstitious person.
You will?
April 2nd,
Yeah.
reciprocal tariffs kick in. And whatever
I'll
they
be waiting.
tariff us, other countries, we will tariff them. That's reciprocal, back and forth. Whatever they tax us,
That's actually.
we will tax them.
I have to think that one through, but
If
that's
they do non-monetary tariffs
a legitimate approach.
to keep us out of their market, then we will do non-monetary barriers to keep them out of our market.
It's like if
There's a
they want
lot
to
of
mark
that,
us up
too.
like
They
that
don't even allow
much,
us in
it's
their
like,
market.
okay, we'll just do the same.
We will take in trillions and trillions
okay,
of
hold
dollars
on.
and create jobs like we have never seen before. I did it with China and I did it with others, and the Biden administration couldn't do anything about it because there was so much money they couldn't do anything about it. We have been ripped off for decades by nearly every country on earth, and we will not let
Arbitrate.
that happen any longer. Much has been said over the last 3 months about Mexico and Canada, but we have very large deficits with both of them. But even more importantly, they've allowed fentanyl to come into our country at levels never seen before, killing hundreds of thousands of our
far did she have to
citizens and many very young, beautiful people, destroying families. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. They are, in effect, receiving subsidies of hundreds of
Hey,
billions of
that's the
dollars.
kid who
We
took-
pay subsidies to Canada
Oh, no.
and to Mexico of
You talked
hundreds
too
of billions
soon.
of dollars, and the United States
You
will not
know,
be
I was
doing
just
that
about to catch
any
him.
longer. We're not going to do it any
Weren't
longer.
you trying to help him get away?
Thanks to our America First policies we're putting
Come on,
into
man.
place, we have had
I wonder if
$1.7 trillion of new investment in
yourself.
America in just the past few weeks. The combination of the election and our economic policies that people of SoftBank, one of the most brilliant anywhere in the world, announced a $200 billion investment. OpenAI and Oracle, Larry Ellison, announced $500 billion investment,
me?
which they wouldn't
Got a minute?
have done
What is
if
it?
Kamala had
I'm
won.
looking for a kid named Bruno.
Apple
Gambala.
announced
Maybe you've seen him around.
$500
She's just in the
billion
back, just trash.
investment. Called me. He said, I cannot spend it fast enough. It's going to
He
be
looks
much
like
higher than
this.
that, I believe. They'll be
Sure, I'll help
building
you.
their plants here instead of in
Bruno, you
China.
said?
And
Yeah,
just
no
yesterday,
problem.
Taiwan Semiconductor, the
man.
biggest in the
If
world,
you see
most
him,
powerful
it'd
in
be
the
great
world,
if you could catch him too.
has a tremendous amount, 97% of the market, announced a $165 billion investment to build the most powerful
There
chips
he
on
is.
earth
Hey,
right here in the
mister,
USA.
That's him. Get him.
And the business is back. Well, we got to do it, I
And
guess.
we're not giving them any money. Your CHIPS Act
managed to
is a
steal my most
horrible,
prized materia.
horrible thing. We give hundreds of billions of
Well,
dollars,
once you used it,
and it
there
doesn't
was
mean a thing.
no
They take our
chance.
money and they don't spend it.
You too.
All that meant
You didn't
to
even
them,
try to
we're
chase
giving
it.
them no money.
Come on now.
All that was
That's not
important
true
to
at
them
all.
was they didn't want to pay the tariffs, so they came and they're building, and many other companies are coming.
Oh,
We don't
I
have to give
see.
them money. We just
come
want to
back.
protect our businesses and our people. And they will come because they won't have to pay tariffs if they build in America. So it's
Did you
very
find him
amazing.
yet?
You should get rid of the CHIP Act.
no.
And whatever's left over,
Give me more time.
Mr. Speaker,
I'll
you
find
should
him.
use it to reduce debt or any other reason you want to.
The Chip Act. Trump.
Our new trade policy will also be great for the American farmer. I love the farmer. Who will now be selling into our home market, the USA, because nobody is going to be able to compete with you. Because there's goods that come in from other
need to look so
countries and
worried.
companies. They're
I'll
really,
look around the
really in
shops
a
again.
bad position in so many different ways. They're uninspected. They may be very dirty and disgusting, and they come in and they pour in, and they hurt our American farmers. The tariffs will go on agricultural product coming into America, and our farmers, starting on April 2nd, it may be a little bit of an adjustment period. We had that before when I made the deal with China, $50 billion of purchases, and
Hey,
I said, just
excuse
bear
me.
with me, and they
I'm
did.
looking for a little
They
boy
did.
named Bruno.
Probably have to bear with me again, and this will be even better. That was great. The problem with it was that Biden didn't enforce it. He didn't
He looks
enforce
like
it.
this.
$50 billion of
I haven't
purchases,
seen-
and we were
Wait,
doing
I
great,
did
but
see
Biden
him.
did not enforce
Really?
it, and it hurt our
That way,
farmers.
I
But
think.
our farmers are
way?
going to have a field day right now.
Yes,
So
yes,
to our
way down there.
farmers, have a lot of
Great,
fun. I love
thanks.
you too.
Hey!
I love you too.
Wait, he's all about
All going to happen.
you.
This fucking town.
And I have also imposed a 25% tariff on foreign aluminum, copper, lumber, and steel because
really bad
if we don't have, as an example, steel
Come on.
and lots of other things, we don't
Come
have a
on, man.
military and frankly won't have, we just won't have
Come
a
on,
country
man.
very long.
Did you find
Here
him yet?
today is a proud
That boy
American steel worker,
Is really fast.
fantastic person from Decatur, Alabama.
Not fast.
Jeff Denard has been working at the same steel plant for 27 years in a job that has
how
allowed
goes?
him to serve as the captain of his local volunteer fire department, raise 7 children with his beautiful wife,
There's no
Nicole,
need to look so
and over the years provide a loving
just
home
bad
for
luck.
more than 40 foster children.
Hey,
So great,
Why don't we
Jeff.
look together?
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Jeff. Stories like Jeff's remind us that tariffs are not just about protecting American jobs. They're about protecting the soul
Needed money.
of our
He
country.
should still be around here.
Tariffs are about making America rich again and making America great again, and it's happening, and it will
Then
happen rather
you stay
quickly.
here
There'll
and keep
be
an eye out.
a little disturbance,
I'll go take a look around town.
but we're okay
Let's
with
try
that.
that.
It won't
Okay?
be much. No, you're not. Oh. And look where Biden took us. Very low, the lowest we've ever been. Jeff, I want to thank you very much. And I also want to recognize another person who has devoted herself to foster care community. She works so hard on it. A very loving person, our magnificent First Lady of the United States. Melania's work has yielded incredible results, helping prepare our nation's future
you found the
leaders
boy
as
you were
they
looking
enter the workforce. Our First Lady is joined by 2 impressive young women, very impressive. Haley Ferguson, who benefited from
found
the
you.
First Lady's Fostering the Future initiative and is poised to complete her education and become a teacher. And Elliston Berry, who became a victim of an illicit
Finally.
deep fake image produced by a peer.
All right.
with
know what you did was
Elliston's
bad,
help,
don't you?
the Senate just
should
passed
never
the
steal
Take
from
It Down
people.
Act, and this is so important. Thank you very much, John. John Thune, thank you. Stand up, John. Thank you, John. Thank you all very much.
Did you really steal?
Thank you. And thank you to John Thune and the Senate. Great job. To criminalize
So
the
why did you do
publication of such images online is terrible, terrible thing. And once it passes the House, I look
Eric
forward to
believed in you.
signing that bill
No matter what
into
I
law.
said, she
Thank you.
insisted you're a good
And I'm going to
boy.
use that bill for myself too,
You
if you
can
don't
shut
mind.
me out.
Because nobody gets treated worse than I do online. Nobody.
Money? Tell me
That's
why.
great. Thank you very much to the Senate. Thank
I
you.
need medicine.
I don't know. Elon
But
But if we
brain
truly
syndrome is
care
kind of
about
taking over right
protecting
now. I
America's
see a lot
children,
of stuff
no
about
step
Elon.
is more crucial
That's
than
why I took this
securing
guy's
America's borders. Over the
is so
past
funny.
4 years, 21
Couple
million
years ago.
people poured into the United
The
States.
left
Many
actually
of them
loved
were
Elon.
murderers,
And then it's
human
like,
traffickers,
now you hate Elon. It's like,
gang
now we
members,
hate
and other
Elon.
criminals from the streets of dangerous cities
Do it again.
all throughout the world. Because of Joe Biden's insane and very dangerous
Now we're
open
friends
border
again.
policies, they are now strongly embedded
You
in
agree?
our country.
You believe in
But
it,
we are
so-
getting them out and getting them out fast.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
You need medicine, right?
I feel like that.
And I want to thank Tom Homan and Christy. I want to thank you and Paul of Border Patrol. I want to thank you. What a
Leave it to
job
me.
they've all done.
But it's
Everybody, Border Patrol,
dangerous.
ICE,
What am I doing? Fighting?
law
Don't you
enforcement
worry.
in general is
Monsters
incredible.
around
We have to
here
take
are
care of our
caged.
law enforcement.
Okay.
Have to.
But I'm going to.
No, what did you think? Just let me know.
Last year,
Make it clean.
a brilliant 22-year-old nursing student named Lakin Riley,
I think you're
the
gonna
best
need-
in her class, admired by everybody, went out for a jog on the campus of the University of Georgia. That morning, Lakin was viciously attacked, assaulted, beaten, brutalized, and horrifically murdered. Lakin was stolen from us by a savage illegal alien gang member who was arrested while trespassing across Biden's open southern border and then set loose into the United States under the heartless policies of that failed administration. It was indeed a failed
That's gotta
administration.
be them.
He had then been arrested and released in a Democrat-run sanctuary city, a disaster,
Sorry, but
before ending the
need some
life of
money,
this beautiful
so I have
young
to go over
angel.
and collect.
With us this evening are Lakin's beloved mother, Allison, and her sister,
Relax.
Lauren.
Don't worry about me. You know, you should get behind that game yourself. Here we go. This is them.
Last year, I told Lakin's grieving
Here I
parents that
come.
we would ensure their daughter
Activating combat
would not have died in vain. That's why the very first bill I signed into law as your 47th president mandates the detention of all dangerous criminal aliens who
Oh,
threaten public
we are.
safety.
One
It's a very
wallet.
strong, powerful act.
Is the money still inside? Oh! That's way more than I
It's called the Lakin-Riley Act. So Allison and Lauren, America will never, ever forget our beautiful Lakin Hope Riley.
Are you okay?
If you need my help, just ask. You don't need to steal anything.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
You've got bigger
Since
money
taking
problems
office,
than
my
me.
administration has launched the most sweeping
Well,
border and
maybe so.
immigration crackdown
But hey,
in
just
American
you wait.
history,
Aerith
and we
I,
quickly
we're
achieved
gonna
the
make a
lowest
fortune.
numbers of illegal border
We're
crossers
launching
ever
Operation Midgar
recorded.
full of
Thank you.
flowers, wallet full of money.
The media and our friends in the Democrat Party kept saying we needed new legislation. We must have legislation to secure the border. But it turned out that all we really needed
Hey, Zach,
was a new
did you
president.
mean it?
Thank you. Joe Biden didn't just open our borders, he flew illegal aliens over them to overwhelm our schools, hospitals, and communities throughout the country. Entire towns like Aurora, Colorado, and Springfield, Ohio, buckled under the weight of the migrant occupation and corruption like nobody's ever seen before. Beautiful towns destroyed. Now, just as I promised in my inaugural address, we are achieving the great liberation of America. But there still is much work to be done. Here tonight is a woman I have gotten to know, Alexis Nungari from Houston. Wonderful woman. Last June,
No,
Alexis's
not a
12-year-old
boyfriend.
daughter, her
I just met him
precious
today.
Jocelyn,
Oh,
walked to a
wait.
nearby
Could we
convenience
take a
store.
look?
She was kidnapped, tied up, assaulted for 2 hours
out to go
under a
shopping?
bridge, and horrifically murdered.
Okay, forget it.
Arrested and charged with this heinous crime are two illegal
no,
alien
I'm
monsters
joking.
from
Go
Venezuela,
take a look.
released into America by
Thank
the
you.
last
Just a look.
administration through
I'll
their
be quick.
ridiculous open border. The death of this beautiful 12-year-old girl and the agony of her mother and family touched our entire nation greatly.
Like this story?
Alexis, I promised
It's fun.
that we
just
would always
looking.
remember your daughter, your magnificent daughter,
Eric.
and
Uh-huh.
earlier tonight
To
I
pay you
signed
back
an
for that.
order
Hello.
keeping my word
I'll buy you
to
something.
you. One thing I have learned about Jocelyn is that
Your
she
offer
loved
was
animals
one
so
thing,
much. She
no?
loved nature.
But then you said, don't
Across
be silly.
Galveston
Remember?
Bay, from where Jocelyn lived in
I-
Houston, you will find
Okay,
a magnificent
memento
national
for today.
wildlife
You
refuge,
mean it?
a pristine,
Of course.
peaceful, 34,000-acre sanctuary for all of God's
Okay.
creatures on
I
the
want
edge of
this.
the Gulf of America.
All right, it's yours.
Alexis,
Hold on.
moments ago, I formally renamed that refuge
How's that?
in loving memory of
Does
your
it look right?
beautiful daughter, Jocelyn. So, Mr.
I
Vice
think
President,
so.
if you
Yeah,
would,
it looks
may I have the
great.
order?
Thank you, Zach. Hey, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. All three
So,
savages charged
Ever
with
meet any soldier members?
Jocelyn and Lakin's
Maybe.
murders were members of the
happy?
Venezuelan prison gang, the toughest gang they say in the world,
Heroes to children.
known as Tren de Aragua.
Protectors of the peace.
2 weeks ago, I officially designated this gang,
They're
along
not
with
normal.
MS-13 and the bloodthirsty
They get some
Mexican
kind
drug
of special
cartels, as
surgery.
foreign terrorist organizations.
Yep.
They are now officially in the same category as ISIS, and that's not good for
And
them.
they're-
Countless thousands of these terrorists were
Still not sure
welcomed
how I feel
into
about
the
that, Bill.
U.S. by the
and they
Biden
love it.
administration. But now
It's
every
gonna be
last
used and
one will be
abused.
rounded up and forcibly removed from our country, or
Actually,
if they're too
I'm
dangerous,
with Soldier.
put in jails, standing trial in this country, because
I'm
we don't
sorry.
want them to come back ever. With us this evening is a warrior on the front lines of that battle, Border Patrol Agent Roberto Ortiz. Great guy. In January, Roberto and another agent were patrolling by the Rio Grande near an area known
I'll
as
admit,
Cartel Island.
Things
Doesn't
haven't
sound
been
too
normal
nice
at
to
all
me.
lately.
When heavily armed gunmen started shooting at them,
What about you, Era?
Roberto saw that
your
his
life
partner
going?
was totally exposed, at great danger, and he leapt
I
into
was thinking
action,
it would be a
returning
normal
fire
day.
and providing crucial
But then
seconds for
suddenly-
his fellow agent to
Some guy
seek
fell out of the sky.
safety, just barely.
That's not all that bad.
I have some of the prints of that event, and it was not good. Agent Ortiz, we salute you for your great courage and for your line of fire that you took and for the bravery that you showed.
way.
We honor you, and we will always honor you.
sorry,
Thank
but
you,
duty
Roberto,
calls.
very much.
I guess I took it early.
Thank you, Roberto.
My friends are crazy.
And I actually got to know him on
You
my
talk in
many
your sleep.
calls to the border. He's a great,
Yeah.
great gentleman.
It'll be fine.
The territory to the immediate
that
south of our border is now dominated entirely by criminal cartels that murder, rape, torture, and exercise total
to the Shima
control.
building,
They have
I
total
have to
control over a whole nation, posing a grave threat to our national security. The cartels are waging war in America, and it's time for America to wage war on the cartels, which we are doing. Five nights ago, Mexican authorities, because of our tariff policies being imposed on them, think of this, handed over to us 29 of the biggest cartel leaders in their country. That has never happened before. They want to make us happy. First time ever. But we need Mexico and Canada to do much more than they've done, and they have to stop the fentanyl and drugs pouring into the USA. They're going to stop it. I have sent Congress a detailed funding request laying out exactly how we will eliminate these threats to protect our homeland and complete the largest deportation operation in American history, larger even than current record holder President Dwight D. Eisenhower, a moderate man, but someone who believed very strongly in borders. Americans expect Congress to send me this funding without delay so I can sign it into law. So, Mr. Speaker, John Thune, both of you, I hope you're going to be able to do that, Mr. Speaker. Thank you. Mr. Leader, thank you. Thank you very much. And let's get it to me. I'll sign it so fast, you won't even believe it.
So fast you won't even believe it.
And as we reclaim our sovereignty, we must also bring back law and order to our cities and towns. In recent years, our justice system has been turned upside down by radical left lunatics.
Lunatics.
Many jurisdictions virtually ceased enforcing the law against dangerous repeat offenders while weaponizing law enforcement against political opponents like me. My administration has acted swiftly and decisively to restore fair, equal, and impartial justice under the constitutional rule of law, starting at the FBI and the DOJ. Pam, good luck. Cash, wherever you may be, good luck. Good luck. Pam Bondi.
Pam Bondi.
So important. Going to do a great job. Cash, thank you. Thank you, Cash. They've already started very strong. They're going to do a fantastic job. You're going to be very proud of them. We're also once again giving our police officers the support, protection, and respect they so dearly deserve. They have to get it. They have such a hard, dangerous job, but we're going to make it less dangerous. The problem is the bad guys don't respect the law, but they're starting to respect it, and they soon will respect it. This also includes our great fire departments throughout the country. Our firemen and women are unbelievable people, and I will never forget them. And besides that, they voted for me in record numbers, so I have no choice. 1 year ago this month, 31-year-old New York police officer Jonathan Diller, unbelievably wonderful person and a great officer, was gunned down at a traffic stop on Long Island. I went to his funeral. The vicious criminal charged with his murder had 21 prior arrests, and they were rough arrests, too. He was a real bad one. The thug in the seat next to him had 14 prior arrests and went by the name of Killer. He was Killer. He killed other people, they say, a lot of them. I attended Officer Diller's service, and when I met his wife and one-year-old son, Ryan, it was very inspirational, actually. His widow's name is Stephanie, and she is here tonight. Stephanie, thank you very much, Stephanie. Thank you very much.
Yeah, the Trump. Like, really gets his neck out there. Chocobo stomp. How do you get all the treasure chests?
Stephanie, we're going to make sure that Ryan knows his dad was a true hero, New York's finest, and we're going to get these cold-blooded killers and repeat offenders off our streets, so we're going to do it fast. Got to stop it. They get out with 28 arrests. They push people into subway trains. They hit people over the head, back of the head with baseball bats. We got to get them out of here. I've already signed an executive order requiring a mandatory death penalty for anyone who murders a police officer. And tonight I'm asking Congress to pass that policy into permanent law.
Anybody? I mean, not sure. I'd have to really
I'm
think
also
that one through,
asking
too.
for a new crime bill getting tough on repeat offenders while enhancing protections for America's police officers so they can do their jobs without fear of their lives being totally destroyed. They don't want to be killed. We're not going to let them be killed. Joining us in the gallery tonight is a young man who truly loves our police. His name is DJ Daniel. He is 13 years old, and he has always dreamed of becoming a police officer.
Background check just went through Toledo. And it's all clear. So, my story is I had a DUI a while back, and I was worried that it was going to interfere with getting a job there, and apparently not. So that's good. It was a long time ago, so. But
in 2018, DJ was diagnosed with brain cancer. The doctors gave him 5 months at most to live.
I'm
That
actually
was more
surprised.
than
I
6
just,
years ago.
I guess I just expect the worst. I'm a little bit of a pessimist for sure, but that's yeah, you took it. That was quick. I did that yesterday. I mean, I do have my license back. And like I'm driving. I haven't.
Since that time, DJ and his dad have been on a quest
I
to
haven't done
make
anything bad in like
his
years,
dream come
so,
true,
yeah.
and DJ has been sworn in
Haven't got the
as an
ticket, so,
honorary
yeah.
law enforcement officer. Actually, a number of times. The police love him. The police departments love him. And tonight, DJ, we're going to do you the biggest honor of them all. I am asking our new Secret Service Director, Sean Curran, to officially make you an agent of the United States Secret Service.
Yeah, this one. I heard that Elizabeth Warren didn't even clap for this. Didn't even stand up, clap, anything. Just wanted to make sure that it wasn't a clip from what I saw this morning. Good for that kid. He's probably so stoked. His dad, too. Just think about how awesome that is for his dad.
Thank you, DJ.
Hold on.
DJ's doctors believe his cancer likely
I don't
came
think
from
it
a
showed
chemical
it,
he was
though.
exposed to when he was younger. Since
Okay, so I'm gonna have to
1975,
actually dig
rates
deeper into
of
that.
child cancer have increased by more than 40%. Reversing this trend is one of the top
129. I'm going to go back real quick.
officer. Actually, a number of times. The police love him. The police departments love him. And tonight, DJ, we're going to do you the biggest honor
Yeah,
of them
I don't
all.
think they show it.
I am asking our new Secret Service Director, Sean Curran, to officially make you an agent of the United States Secret Service.
It's pretty dope, though, for that kid.
For our new presidential commission to make America healthy again, chaired by our new Secretary of Health and Human Services, Robert F. Kennedy, Jr. With the name Kennedy, you would have thought everybody over here would have been cheering. How quickly they forget. Our goal is to get toxins out of our environment, poisons out of our food supply, and keep our children healthy and strong. As an example, not long ago, and you can't even believe these numbers, 1 in 10,000 children had autism, 1 in 10,000, and now it's 1 in 36. There's something wrong, 1 in 36, think of that.
That's so many.
So we're going to find out what it is, and there's nobody better than Bobby and all of the people that are working with you. You have the best to figure out what is going on. Okay, Bobby, good luck. It's a very important job. Thank you.
But the Democrats don't really have any argument against that. They just, oh, he's Hitler too. Oh, he's a Nazi. That's worse. That's
My
literally
administration
everybody's
is
a
also
Nazi.
working to protect our children from toxic ideologies
He actually
in our
cares
schools.
about getting
A
that
few
crap out
years
of our
ago,
food, and then they
January,
have to
Little
rabble.
John and her husband discovered that their daughter's school had secretly, socially transitioned their 13-year-old little girl. Teachers and administrators conspired to deceive January and her husband while encouraging her daughter to use a new name and pronouns. They, them pronoun, actually. All without telling January, who is here tonight and is now a courageous advocate against this form of child abuse. January, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Stories like this are why, shortly after taking office, I signed an executive order banning public schools from indoctrinating our children with transgender ideology.
This little girl.
I also signed an order to cut off all taxpayer funding to any institution
That was good.
that engages in the sexual mutilation of our youth.
Like that one that just ran by.
And now I want Congress to pass a bill permanently banning and criminalizing sex changes on
Yuffie,
children
what are
and
you?
forever ending the lie that any child is trapped in the wrong body. This is a big lie. And our message to every child in America is that you are perfect exactly the way God made you. Because we're getting wokeness out of our
kinda cool.
schools and out of our military, and it's already out, and it's out of our society. We don't want it. Wokeness
We don't want
is
it.
trouble. Wokeness is bad. It's gone. It's gone. And we feel so much better for it, don't we? Don't we feel better?
What is
Our service
vitality if
members
it's not
won't be
HP?
activists and ideologues. They will be fighters and warriors. They will fight for our country. And Pete, congratulations. Secretary of Defense, congratulations.
I mean, we'll give it a shot. See what happens. Maybe I get praised. I don't know, like ailments more or something. Who knows?
And he's not big into the woke movement, I can tell you. I know him well. I am pleased to report that in January, the U.S. Army had its single best recruiting month in 15 years, and that all armed services are having among the best recruiting results ever in the history of our services. What a difference.
Don't know about that. Well, for how far down they were, maybe.
And you
It was
know,
pretty
it
bad
was
there for a
just
little bit.
a few months ago where the results were exactly the opposite. We couldn't recruit anywhere. We couldn't recruit. Now we're having the best results just about that we've ever had. What a tremendous turnaround.
Yeah, the turnaround
It's
is
really
probably
a
what he's
beautiful
talking
thing
about.
to see. People love our country again.
That's why
It's
people
very
hate
simple.
Trump, it's 'cause he's
they
vague
love our
about that
country
sort of
and they
thing.
love being in our military again. So it's a
Activating
great
combat
thing. And
mode.
thank you very much. Great job.
It's like, how can you say that? He exaggerates. But I bet you the numbers are
We're
pretty
joined
damn
tonight
good.
by a young man, Jason Hartley, who knows the weight of that call of duty. Jason's father, grandfather, and great-grandfather all wore the uniform. Jason tragically lost his dad, who was also a Los Angeles County Sheriff's deputy when he was just a boy, and now he wants to carry on the family legacy of service. Jason is a senior in high school, a 6-letter varsity athlete, a really good athlete, they say.
Destroyed?
A brilliant student with a 4.46, that's good, GPA. And his greatest dream is to attend the U.S. Military Academy at West Point.
Nice. It's like they're locking up.
And Jason, that's a very big deal getting in. That's a hard one to get into. But I'm pleased to inform you that your application has been accepted. You will soon be joining the Corps of Cadets.
Hold it. 8. All right. messing around. 8 more.
Thank you. Jason, you're going to be on the lone gray line, Jason. As Commander-in-Chief, my focus is on building the most powerful military of the future. As a first step, I'm asking Congress to fund a state-of-the-art Golden Dome missile defense
BRB,
shield to
guys.
protect our